In this video today, we're talking all about backpacking chairs and going to compare low-cost options to expensive options, but these are some of the most popular backpacking chairs out there on the market. And ultimately, I'm going to share with you which chair I think is the best chair for backpacking and which chair I think still sucks, even though it's very popular. This video is not sponsored by any of the brands that we're talking about today. No money was exchanged, and none of these brands asked for me to make this video. Some of these chairs were provided for free from the brands over the past few years for me to test and review and share with you guys. Some of these chairs were also purchased with my own money. Now, these 5 chairs here in front of me share a lot of the same design characteristics in that they're folding, compact, lightweight, backpacking focused chairs that have a hub style design where the poles are on shock cord and they click into these hubs that create the structure and the support for you to sit down. They all have these bucket style seats that are made from a lightweight fabric that attach into 4 points onto the chair. But when you really break it down, these are very different in their overall comfort, their price points, and just the enjoyment of what they provide as a chair for backpacking. So the first chair we're going to talk about today is the lowest cost option, and that is the Yizi Lite from Trekology. So this is the Yizi Lite from Trekology. This is a chair that I have honestly enjoyed more than I thought I would in comparison to the other chairs we're going to talk about today. This is a chair that kind of takes on that lounge style approach and just allows you to really relax and kick back and enjoy a comfortable sitting experience when you're out on a trip. This chair is not perfect. It doesn't have everything that I want, and that namely goes into the sitting height. I typically prefer a chair that sits a bit higher off of the ground because getting in and out of the chair is a lot harder when you're this low to the ground. The seating height is 9.8 inches, and you can see I am pretty low to the ground. But because of the design of this chair being that it lounges back and leans back more and not that typical sitting upright position, I don't mind the lower to the ground sitting position because of that. I can really just kick back and enjoy myself, and that is a nice thing. Now, this chair comes in at a weight of 1 pound 10 ounces, so it's not the lightest chair out there on the market, but it also comes in at a really respectable budget-friendly price point of $50. This chair will hold up to 220 pounds of weight, and it's got a pretty robust construction to it with some nice features going on here. So even though it sits low to the ground, it doesn't sink into the ground all that much because you have a pretty wide spread of your feet, but you do have the option of buying a platform here for you to put on the bottom. It does not come with the chair when you purchase it. It is an add-on, but it makes it so that the chair isn't going to sink into the ground, and that will add some weight. Here on the side of the chair, you've got a stretch mesh pocket, which more companies need to include this little stretchy pocket on the side of the seat so that you can put whatever you need to put in there, your lighter, your spoon, little things, the stuff sack for your pot, because oftentimes we're going to be sitting in the chair and then cooking when we get into camp. That is a welcomed feature that I would like to see on more backpacking chairs. Is it my all-time favorite chair that we're going to talk about today? No. But is it better than some of the more expensive chairs we'll talk about today? Absolutely. So this one, definitely worth checking out if you don't want to break the bank. All right, next up here is the REI FlexLite Air chair. This is a chair that I just don't understand, if I'm being totally honest. Now, about a year ago, I did a video doing a comparison of 3 very popular backpacking chairs. This is more or less an update to that video to include the REI FlexLite Air because I got many comments in that video saying, why'd you forget to include the REI FlexLite Air? So here we are, including this chair, and I don't get it because this chair is one of the least enjoyable backpacking chairs I've ever sat in. I don't like the design of this chair. It's one of the most uncomfortable because of the way that the hub and the frame of the chair is designed and oriented that when I sit down in it, it just tacos. It just pushes your body together, and it wants me to do this, and it's not, I'm like fighting against the chair, and I don't enjoy that aspect. Now, it is a very lightweight chair at 16 ounces, so 1 pound makes it one of the lightest chairs on the market, and it's a really good price point at $100 for that weight. But overall, the construction of this chair is pretty nice in the sense that it will hold up to 250 pounds of weight. It has a higher seating height than some of the other options out there at 11 inches, which I do enjoy. I like having a taller seating height, but it doesn't feel much higher because when I sit down in it, I just like sink down because I'm getting that taco effect. Like, look at this. And then it sinks into the ground. You know, I don't like chairs that sink into the ground. This chair, I'm not trying to be dramatic. I just don't enjoy it, and I don't see what all the hype is about it. And so, no, it's not the most enjoyable option of all of the backpacking chairs that I've used, but I can see if you're just looking for something that doesn't break the bank, you want the weight savings, but you also just want to get your butt off of the ground, then yeah, I think for a weekend backpacking trip, it'll do the job. But if I'm looking at it strictly from a comfort standpoint, it's not the most comfortable chair out there on the market, and I think there's better options. All right, next up here is the Moonlight Elite from Nemo Equipment. This is a chair that I think a lot of people were excited about when it was first announced because this is a chair that directly competes with the Helinox Chair Zero from a weight standpoint. There's a bit more going on with this chair than the Chair Zero from a feature standpoint, but it's also the most expensive option that we'll talk about here today. This chair comes in at a price point of $180, but from a feature standpoint, there's a lot going on with the Moonlight Elite. You have something that has a lot of attention to detail to create the most comfortable seating option possible that you can get from a lightweight chair like this. I still don't think it is the most comfortable chair out there on the market, but it is certainly better than a lot of options. And part of that is that you have some flexibility in how you can sit in this chair. Right now, I have this in like full recline mode, but with these sliders on this cordage here on each side, I can push those up or down and adjust the position of the back of the chair. And that makes for a more upright seating position, or if I would like to recline a bit, then I just come back. Now, this is not a lazy boy type of recline. It is minimal in the amount, but it is noticeable enough that it changes the position. But it does a couple of things that are slightly annoying in the comfort. First is that I haven't seen many people talk about, and that is the length of the bottom of the seat. It feels really short. So if I want to like really recline in this chair, then it's harder for me to do so because my butt is like almost off of the edge of the seat at this point if I really want to like lean back and enjoy myself. And at that point as well, here on the tops of the back of the chair, it is digging into my armpits a bit. And so I just have to adjust things a touch. It's not a deal breaker. It's not so uncomfortable that I'm like, I'm never sitting in that chair again, but it is noticeable. And if you're sitting in the chair for a long period of time, you'll find yourself adjusting your position a lot more than just if you didn't have that to worry about. Now, the other attention to detail aspects of this are, this has a really high level of construction. You've got really high quality fabric that's kind of a mesh fabric for the seat, but it also has these really strong corner supports and pieces to make it as durable as possible. But it's also the only chair here that clips in using a ball and socket for each of the corners as opposed to a slot for it to slide onto the post of the frame for the chair. And that just allows for articulation and movement because it is a ball moving in a socket, and that's nice. And you do notice that when you are sitting in the chair, so that adds just a little bit more comfort for it to mold to your body. The other nice thing that I do think is a great value aspect to the Moonlight Elite is the storage bag is like a burrito type of bag that functions as a ground sheet, so it's not going to sink into the ground. But this also has a little bit higher seating height, which I like, at 12 inches. Now I definitely would like it to be a little bit taller, but this is seriously so much better than other options that we have talked about today because I am that much higher off of the ground and I don't feel like I have to put as much effort to standing up and getting out. This is a really good backpacking chair. It's 1 pound, 2 ounces. It's quite comfortable, but it is very expensive. But you have a lot going on here from a design standpoint. It's very feature rich and it's an enjoyable chair for backpacking. All right, next up here is the Helinox Chair Zero. This is the OG lightweight backpacking chair. This is the option that became super popular because it was the first option to achieve that 1 pound weight class where people are like, yeah, I'll carry an extra pound for a little bit more comfort in the backcountry. But of all of the chair options we're talking about today, this is still not the most comfortable chair in my opinion for backpacking. But you do have some really good things going on with the Chair Zero. You have a tried and true design here that is robust, it's durable, it's got the Helinox name attached to it, so it's going to last for a long time. I've had this one for several years at this point. The frame is a really good construction. It's strong, hold 265 pounds, but it is at a pretty premium price point of $150. 1 pound, 2 ounces for its total weight. So in comparison to all of the other backpacking chairs out there on the market, no, it's not the most expensive. It's $30 less than the Nemo Moonlight Elite. But from a comfort standpoint and just the overall enjoyment level of this chair, it's not the most enjoyable option. It is better than the REI FlexLite Air, but it's still not the most comfortable chair. I do find that there's less digging into my shoulders with this one than some of the other chairs we've talked about today, but I find that it sits a bit more upright than I typically would enjoy, and it's not the most stable backpacking chair that you can sit in. Very often, this is sinking into the ground more than any other chair that I use for my backpacking. And I know that you can get different products just like with the Yizi light from Trekology that we talked about to make it so that it doesn't sink into the ground. But I don't always want to have to add more things to my options here for me to avoid that situation. Oftentimes I find when I'm like leaning back in the chair and such, it'll start to like dig into the ground, and because of how the frame is designed, it likes to rotate. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm falling over. And it's those little things with the chair that just make it a bit less enjoyable, and I'm constantly doing this. And if you have sat in a Helinox, very likely you have been the victim of it sinking straight into the ground and falling back onto your back when you sit down in it. So those things about it are a little bit frustrating, but it's also not the tallest sitting height for all of what we're talking about today. It's at 10 inches, and I find that that's not a problem when I'm sitting here in front of me cooking and such, but it just makes it harder to get in and out of. So even a little bit more height makes a big difference, but because this sinks into the ground, you're even losing height because of that, and that is pretty much standard with the Chair Zero here. But overall, I think that this is a nice middle ground option, but it's not my favorite. And I think it still kind of sucks in comparison to other options out there that are much more enjoyable and right around the same price point. And the last chair we'll talk about today, which happens to be my favorite chair for backpacking, is the Big Agnes Skyline UL. This has some really specific design features to it that make it the most enjoyable option. It's still not perfect, but I enjoy this more than any of the other chairs that we have talked about today for two really specific reasons. Well, three. I really like the shape of this chair for a comfort standpoint to just create a really good neutral sitting position. I find that I can sit in this chair longer than any other and be the most comfortable for a long period of time. Number two is that this is at a seat height of 15 inches. It is the highest sitting height of all of the chairs we've talked about today. And for a chair that is focused to backpacking, that is under 2 pounds of weight, this comes in at 1 pound 11 ounces. So there's con number one. It's not the lightest weight option out there on the market, but you have more material here, so it is adding that weight. But that 15 inches of seating height really does make a huge difference in the overall comfort experience with this, because it's so much easier for me to get in and out of the chair and not feel like I'm dropping down into the bottom of the chair and then harder for me to get in and out of. I enjoy the aspect of little design cues that change the experience of just consistency with the chair. And what I mean by that is, compared to the Chair Zero, this does not sink into the ground and doesn't require additional products for me to attach to it to prevent it from sinking. Is it 100% sink free? No, it does go into the ground a little bit, but here on the back of the leg, you have a small bend that just somehow distributes the weight of your body across the frame, and it doesn't allow it to just go down into the ground. And that is huge. It really makes a big difference with the overall experience with the Skyline UL. Now this comes in at a price point of $150, so it's the same as the Chair Zero. It's less than the Nemo Moonlight, and it's seriously just overall the most enjoyable chair that I have used for my backpacking. I guess here real quick, we'll talk about the construction of this, because it's a little bit different than the others, where it doesn't have that hub design in the sense that everything is like connecting into little slots. You have a centerpiece of metal here, metal bar, and then the legs all connect into each other through that bar, which makes it really strong, but it allows for a little bit of movement because it hinges here so that it's not so rigid that on a little bit of uneven ground, it doesn't sit flat, but it's super strong. And this chair is it's just fantastic. So that's the Skyline UL from Big Agnes. Now my question for you is, do you agree with me in my assessment of these various chairs for backpacking? Is the Skyline UL, in your opinion, the best option? Have you used this chair? Or is the Helinox Chair Zero still the OG that reigns supreme as the lightest weight and most comfortable for the weight option on the market? Or is it worth investing $180 into something that is super feature rich? Or do you just go with something that doesn't break the bank and still provides a lot of comfort? So let me know what you think down in the comments. But thanks for watching today, guys. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe. Hope you have an awesome day. We'll catch you on the next one. See you later.